Hey Jer, so I got your video. Yeah, I like what you say about about evolution complexity, and I guess what kind of brought up for me is how there's in a sense two kinds of evolution. There's uh, horizontal and vertical evolution. There's I think what Darwin was studying in the Galapagos Islands with all those finches was horizontal evolution. The same species had arrived on the island and then branched off into all these different niches. Adapting different kinds of beaks, different kinds of behavior and stuff. So, uh, so obviously that's the thing. But then there's also vertical evolution where you have where you go from like bacteria to eukaryotes to multi-celled organisms to vertebrates to land animals to and and so on. And in a sense, I think you can see the same thing in consciousness. There's I think when you talk about evolution of consciousness, you definitely have to make a distinction between you know, vertical and horizontal, horizontal translation and vertical transformation. I mean, if I if I were to go live in Japan for a few years, then then I would have to change some of my habits. Get accustomed to local culture, and adjust to the local consciousness. But that's not vertical. That's not that. It's not either that Japan is more evolved than us or less evolved than us. It's that they have a different culture, and they have different levels of consciousness within that culture, and those levels of consciousness look different within that cultural context than they do. And those same levels would look like in the West. Um, and so there's definitely horizontal transformation, translation, which is adaptation. In a sense, I think Darwin's theory is more applicable um, to that sort of evolution than it is toward for vertical transformation. Because if you think about it, why how do you explain the evolution you know, from single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms through natural selection? I mean, a natural single-cell organisms, especially bacteria, are basically immortal, save for any fluctuations in heat or whatever. I mean they're basically there's a lot fewer threats to them than there are to multi-celled organisms, which can actually be brought down by bacteria. And so, in a sense, I think when you look at the sort of trend toward more complexity, that there does seem to be a certain what Whitehead and Kimball were called eros, um, sort of move towards greater complexity. Um, and I think conference report mentioned seemed to object to the idea that complexity necessarily means more value. And I think what Whitehead was saying was that with greater complexity there is greater realization of value. There's subjective realization of value. I mean, basically, a bacteria is not able to contemplate its own ontology in the way that a human is able to. So there's and so that's kind of a level of value that's able to be realized that can't be realized in less complex organisms. Um, and so I think so if you try to look at an objective universe, I think you're missing the point, which is that we live in a universe of subjects or subjects creating objects. That everything exists as both a subject and an object, and that you can talk about value increasing because of the value that is experienced by those organisms in the universe. Um, and so yeah, I think that complexity leads to increased value because it leads to increased realization of value subjectively. Um, and so I think I think teleology is subjective, but that doesn't mean it's not real, because in a sense it can be intersubjective, insofar as there are subjects to realize purpose than there is teleology. Um, so, uh, so yeah, I guess that's my thoughts for now. Peace.